This is the moment Arlington police officers arrived at the front doors of the Spa Galleria strip mall on shots fired, recorded on a cell phone. Just after 10 a.m. Friday, police say a 37-year-old woman walked into the South Cooper Street location with a gun and opened fire on a man she had been dating as he got a haircut.
Picture this. It's a regular Friday morning in Arlington, Texas. The sun is already sitting high and hot the way it does in July. Inside the Salon and Spa Galleria on South Cooper Street, the building is alive. The hum of blow dryers, the faint smell of product in the air, stylists chatting with clients, people sitting back and letting themselves be taken care of for a little while. Normal, peaceful, the kind of place where nothing ever happens. And then, gunshots. Not a car backfiring, not something falling off a shelf. Gunshots, multiple, close, inside the building. People screamed, workers dropped everything and ran. Clients scrambled over each other to get out. Someone's phone dropped. Someone's bag got left behind. Somebody called 911. When Arlington police units rolled up to the front of the Salon and Spa Galleria, they came in hot, guns drawn, radios going, because they didn't know what they were walking into. Cell phone footage captured the moment those officers arrived at the entrance, already moving with urgency, already scanning. What they found when they got inside would not leave those officers quickly. A 37-year-old man, someone's father, someone's customer, someone who had just settled into a barber's chair like he had done dozens of times before, was found with multiple gunshot wounds. He was pronounced dead at the scene. And a 37-year-old woman, someone's mother, someone's daughter, a veteran, a business owner, a woman who had spent the last several months being systematically stripped of everything she had worked for, was found critically wounded. She was rushed to a hospital. She did not survive. Their names were William Todd Austin Jr. and Timone Michelle Williams. And the story behind that Friday morning in a Texas strip mall is one of the most complex, most disturbing, most painfully human stories I've ever had to sit with. So, if you're new here, welcome to Dark Alley. I'm not going to give you a quick version of this. You deserve the full picture. Hit that subscribe button, drop a comment below telling me what you think as we go, and stay with me, because this one does not have a clean ending. None of the real ones ever do. Let's go all the way back. Every tragedy like this has a before, and the before matters more than most people want to admit. Todd Austin, full name William Todd Austin Jr., grew up in Missouri, graduated from Westport High School in 2006, and eventually made his way south to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, landing in Carrollton, Texas. By the time most people on the internet knew his name, he had built what looked like a thriving personal brand. He sold wigs and hair extensions. He positioned himself as a private chef and posted cooking videos online. Sometimes with one of his sons right there beside him, cutting up ingredients, laughing. The kind of content that makes you say, "Oh, he seems like a good dad." But the business that truly put Todd Austin on the map, the one that gave him his platform, his identity, his following, was Credit Champs, a credit repair company that he branded, promoted, and pushed on social media with relentless energy. Credit repair, for anyone who doesn't know, is a legitimate industry. The concept is simple. Your credit score controls a massive amount of your financial life, whether you can get an apartment, a car loan, a business line of credit, a mortgage. If your credit score is damaged, it can feel like a locked door in front of every single thing you're trying to build. Credit repair companies help people understand, challenge, and in some cases correct the negative items on their credit reports. Done right, it genuinely changes lives. Todd understood how powerful that message was, and he leaned all the way into it. He posted testimonials from clients. He ran mentorship programs. He showed the lifestyle, trips, designer clothes, and eventually, most visibly, a Cybertruck with the Credit Champs logo wrapped around it like a rolling billboard. He wrote things online about how fixing your credit was the #1 priority, how a good credit score was the literal key to the life you were trying to live. He looked like a man who had figured it out. But people close to Michelle Williams have a different account of where Todd Austin was before Credit Champs put him in the spotlight. According to those who knew the situation, when Todd first came into Michelle's life, he was living in downtown Dallas under something called a CPN, a credit privacy number. A CPN is a number some people use in place of their Social Security number, often to start fresh and distance themselves from a severely damaged credit history. He was reportedly behind on rent, behind on his cable bill. Michelle, according to these accounts, only understood the full extent of his financial situation after she went directly to the people at his leasing office and asked questions. Now, and this is important, people in Todd's corner push back hard on that version of events. They pointed to a mentor named Tedrick, someone Todd had been studying under and connected with for years before Michelle, and they credited that relationship as the real origin of Todd's business knowledge. I'm going to present both versions to you because, on Dark Alley, we don't pretend these things are simple. They never are. Now, let's talk about Michelle. Timone Michelle Williams was born in Bossier City, Louisiana, and before she ever entered anyone's world, she had built her own. She served in the United States Armed Forces, the United States Army, and came out of that service with something most people her age were still scrambling for: stability, a retirement check, a foundation. After her service, she built Lux Credit Services and grew it into a real functioning operation. She introduced herself professionally as a CEO, a financial strategist, a credit analyst, a tax preparer, and a mentor. She talked openly about teaching her own children about money and credit from the time they were young, because, in her words, our community simply is not taught those things. She was invested in financial empowerment in a way that felt personal, not performative. Before Todd Austin came into her life, Michelle owned her own home. She had multiple cars. She had that military retirement check coming in. She was a single mother raising a teenager and running her own business. By every measure, Michelle Williams had built herself from the ground up, and she had done it alone. When Todd and Michelle found each other, the optics were perfect. Two people in the same industry, both passionate about credit education, both building platforms, both with an audience of people trying to better their financial lives. They started promoting each other, showing up for each other online. What it looked like from the outside was the definition of a power couple. Two self-made people pulling in the same direction, amplifying each other. On December 25th, 2022, Christmas Day, Michelle gave birth to their son, Amiri. She called him her Christmas baby. She already had her teenage son. Now there was this new chapter. A baby, a partner, a shared business, a shared future. From the outside looking in, it looked like everything was aligned, but something was already quietly wrong. I want you to hear the account of a woman named Laquita Davis. Laquita publicly described having been in a relationship with Todd Austin before Michelle was ever in the picture. What she described, and the detail here is important, was a pattern, not a one-time incident. a pattern. She wrote that she had made the mistake of allowing Todd to move in with her, that at the time she was a business owner and she had exposed him to a different level of lifestyle and business knowledge, introducing him to entrepreneurship, from selling hair to clothing, teaching him what she knew. And that rather than acknowledge any of that, he took the knowledge and passed it off entirely as his own. Every business idea she had, he tried to replicate. In public, he was charming. Behind closed doors, she described manipulation, jealousy, and dishonesty. She described narcissistic tendencies, constant blame-shifting. She also wrote about the child support letters, multiple letters every month arriving at her home, addressed to him with different names on them. When she questioned him, he told her he only had 3 children and that the others were falsely attributed to him. His explanations, she said, never added up. She ended her account with a line that stopped me cold. She wrote, "My last relationship taught me this. You can be the total package, wrapped with a bow on it, but delivered to the wrong address. Whether you take Laquita's account as definitive proof of who Todd Austin was, or as one woman's painful perspective, that line alone should give you pause. Because the pattern she described, taking knowledge, erasing credit, undermining a woman who gave him access to her world, is almost exactly what Michelle Williams' support system would later describe happening to her. At some point between the joy of that Christmas baby and the summer of 2025, something between Todd and Michelle broke beyond repair. They separated, not just personally but professionally too, and that is when the real chaos began. They had a mutual agreement that Todd would move out of Michelle's home so they could go their separate ways and divide the business cleanly. He moved out, but then he started coming back, uninvited. Ring camera footage that later surfaced online showed someone at Michelle's door aggressively attempting to enter the home after the access code had been changed, testing the door, growing more frustrated when it wouldn't give. Michelle would have watched that footage on her phone. The person who was supposed to be gone showing up anyway, not asking, trying. By March of 2025, Michelle went to court. She filed for a protective order in Denton County, Texas. In those documents, she described a 2-year pattern of behavior that had become increasingly threatening. She sought to be named sole managing conservator of their son, Amiri. She was requesting monetary relief exceeding $250,000. And she was asking the court to place a legal barrier between herself, her children, and the man she had once built a business and a family with. 11 days after that protective order was filed, Todd was arrested and booked in Collin County, Texas. His bond was set at $5,000. Legal proceedings, a restraining order, an arrest. These are not the moves of a woman acting impulsively. These are the moves of a woman trying to use every legal tool available to her. And for a period of time, it seemed like the system was responding. But what was happening to her finances during all of this? This is the part of the story that I need you to really sit with. Todd and Michelle had a joint business bank account tied to Credit Champs, the company that, according to Michelle's circle, she had helped build from nothing, the company she had poured her expertise into, the company that had become the heart of their shared professional identity. After the separation, Todd removed Michelle's name from that account, changed the associated email address, redirected all statements, all access, all communications to himself, locked her out completely. Michelle went away to Las Vegas for a weekend. She came back and found the account drained. Approximately $96,000 gone. But it didn't stop there. Todd also found a way to access Michelle's personal account through her phone and drained that too. And then, and this is the part that made my stomach drop when I first read it, he filed fraudulent disputes on 18 months' worth of mortgage payments that Michelle had made from the business account. 18 months of documented mortgage payments disputed. The result? A foreclosure notice landed on Michelle's door demanding $55,000, or she would be required to vacate the property within 60 days. Her home, the one she owned before he ever came into her life, the one built on her military service, her business, her years of work before she ever met him. Now under threat of foreclosure because the payments she had actually made were being fraudulently challenged, and because her name had been removed from the very account those payments came from, contesting it was a near impossible uphill battle. Meanwhile, Todd was still driving that Cybertruck, the one wrapped in Credit Champ's branding, past her house. She could see it on her Ring camera. The truck, she believed, was purchased with money that belonged to both of them, cruising past her front door. I want you to think about what that feels like. Account at zero. Baby to feed. Foreclosure notice on the table. And the person you hold responsible for all of it is literally driving past your house, wrapped in the logo of the business you helped build, untouchable. Michelle reached out to her family. She reached out to people she trusted. She was trying to find a way to stabilize. She asked Todd directly for $20,000, just enough to get her and Amiri back on solid ground. He refused. And during all of this, layered underneath everything, Michelle had lost her mother after a long illness. Her brother suffered a stroke. Her father had passed years before that. She was not just financially devastated, she was a woman who had been grieving in multiple directions for years. Before we get to July 11th, I need to tell you about the court ruling. Legal proceedings over Credit Champs had been ongoing. The question of who owned the business, who owned the vehicles purchased under the business, who had the right to the income and the brand, all of that was being hashed out in court. And shortly before July 11th, 2025, the court ruled in Todd's favor. Full ownership of Credit Champs. All 3 vehicles connected to the business. The company that Michelle's supporters say she helped build from the ground up, the brand that grew around knowledge she had spent years developing, handed entirely to him. I'm not going to tell you the court was wrong, because I don't have access to every document that was presented in those proceedings. Courts make decisions based on evidence. But I can tell you what that ruling meant for Michelle Williams. She was left with nothing. No business, no income, no access. A few cents in her personal account, a foreclosure notice, a baby, and a court decision that closed what may have felt like the last door. That ruling happened just before July 11th. And then came July 11th. Todd Austin had a standing appointment at the Salon and Spa Galleria on South Cooper Street in Arlington, Texas. His barber was a man known as Dax the barber, someone Todd had been going to for 12 years. 12 years. That's not a transaction. That's a relationship. That's someone who knows you, someone you trust to put a blade near your neck, someone you've been showing up for long enough that it's just part of your rhythm. Todd arrived around 10:15 on the morning of Friday, July 11th, 2025. He settled into the chair. Just another Friday. Michelle knew his schedule. She walked into the Salon and Spa Galleria shortly after he arrived. She moved through the building. She headed toward the back, where the barbershop suites were. Within minutes, shots were fired. People screamed, workers ran, clients scrambled. The building that had started that morning as a place of routine and calm became something entirely different in the space of seconds. When Arlington police arrived at the front of the building, Michelle was attempting to leave. She saw the officers outside. She went back inside. Investigators found Todd with multiple gunshot wounds. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Michelle was found critically wounded. She was taken to the hospital. She did not survive. Dax, the barber who had known Todd for 12 years, witnessed everything. When officers arrived, he was too shaken to speak. His wife came to the scene and stayed with him. Other salon workers stood in the parking lot, trying to make sense of something that could not be made sense of. Michelle's white Tesla sat in the parking lot and was later tagged and towed by police. Todd's family came and took the Cybertruck. The first wave of reporting on this story was exactly what you'd expect. A woman walked into a barbershop and shot a man she had been dating. Police called it a targeted domestic incident. Murder-suicide. Not random. For about 48 hours, that was the story. Then the court documents surfaced. And the internet, slowly at first, then all at once, changed its mind. People started reading about the protective order, the arrest, the drained accounts, the fraudulent mortgage disputes, the foreclosure notice, the court ruling, and the narrative shifted dramatically. A woman who identified herself as Michelle's close friend came forward. Her name was Nikki Hunter. Nikki ran her own credit repair company, Rich Reports, and she had previously posted publicly about having her own legal dispute with Todd, accusing him of sending threatening messages and harassing her online after a falling out. Nikki came forward to share Michelle's story, to name the financial devastation specifically, and to push back against the false rumors that were spreading online. Claims about Todd giving Michelle a serious illness, about affairs, about hundreds of thousands in unpaid child support. Most of those early rumors were false, and Nikki said so directly. But then someone from Todd's side responded. They came out swinging with a very specific claim, that Nikki Hunter was not actually Michelle's close friend at all, that she was a former client of Todd's, that she had only connected with Michelle after her own relationship with Todd soured, and that she had personal, documented grievances against him that coloured everything she was saying. The implication was that Nikki's account, however emotionally resonant, was weaponized testimony from someone with a personal axe to grind. Here is what Dark Alley doesn't do. We don't tell you who to believe when the truth is genuinely contested. What I will tell you is this. Nikki Hunter had publicly documented her own conflict with Todd before Michelle's death. That conflict was real. Whether it makes her account less reliable is something you have to weigh for yourself. What she described about Michelle's financial situation, the $96,000, the personal account, the mortgage disputes, the foreclosure, the $20,000 ask that was refused, was largely corroborated by court documents and by Laquita Davis's independent account. On the other side, someone who pushed back on the narrative claimed that Michelle had actually locked Todd out of the business accounts first, that when things fell apart between them, she changed access and left him with almost nothing, that the financial chaos was not a one-sided crime, but a messy mutual destruction between two people who both took shots at each other. I don't have a verdict for you. I don't think anyone does. What I have is a picture of two people who got entangled in a way that brought out the absolute worst of what human beings are capable of doing to each other, financially, emotionally, legally, and ended in a way that cannot be undone. I want to spend a moment on someone who is easy to overlook in a story like this. Dax the barber was at work on a Friday morning, doing what he does, what he has done for 12 years, and he witnessed something no human being should ever have to witness in a place they go every day to earn a living. About 10 days after July 11th, Dax sat down with a local journalist and spoke publicly for the first time. He said that he keeps telling people he's good. Those two words, "I'm good," because it's the answer that makes the moment easier. But he admitted that he's not always good, that he saw something he never thought he would see, that he can no longer work in that suite. Some of his clients, regular people who just came in for a haircut, were too shaken to return to the salon at all. A couple in the building, Mario and his wife, people who had passed Dax in the hallway for years without ever formally meeting him, set up a GoFundMe for Dax without asking him first. Dax wasn't immediately comfortable with it. Accepting help doesn't come naturally to him. But he talked it through with his wife and his pastor, and he came around. Sometimes the only way through something this heavy is to let people in. Every tragedy has a blast radius. Todd and Michelle were at the centre. But Dax, his clients, the salon workers who ran out of the building that morning, the first responders who walked in, they all carry something from July 11th that they didn't have before. Todd Austin left children behind. He had sons from previous relationships, in addition to Amiri, the Christmas baby he shared with Michelle. Michelle left behind her teenage son and 2-year-old Amiri. That Christmas baby, born on December 25th, 2022, called by his mother a Christmas baby, is now growing up without either of his parents. I don't have anything particularly insightful to say about that. Some things just need to be named. I've been in the true crime and forensic narration space long enough to recognize the stories that want to be something simple. They want to be jealous woman snaps over breakup. They want to be dangerous woman you should be afraid of. They want to be a cautionary tale about impulse control. This story refuses to be simple. What Michelle Williams went through in the months before July 11th has a name. It's called financial abuse, and it is one of the most devastating, most underreported, and least visible forms of harm that exists in intimate partnerships. It doesn't leave a bruise. It doesn't show up in an emergency room report. It operates quietly, through shared accounts, through access, through documents, through the slow and deliberate removal of someone's ability to function independently. When a person's name gets removed from the accounts they helped build, when their money disappears while they're out of town, when their mortgage payments get disputed and their home gets threatened, when every legal move they make gets countered and the court ultimately hands the business to the other person. That is not just financial loss. That is the destruction of identity, of stability, of the self. Michelle Williams had a legal team. She had a support system. She had options that were still technically on the table. And she still reached a point where she felt there was no option left. That tells you something critical about how far financial abuse can push a person. I'm not saying what she did was right. I am saying that what happened to her was also wrong, and that both of those things can be true at the same time. This is not a story about a woman who couldn't control her emotions. This is a story about what happens when someone feels that the system, the courts, the banks, the legal process has taken everything from them and handed it to the person who, by their understanding, stole it. Whether that understanding was entirely accurate is something we will never be able to fully resolve. But the desperation was real. The grief was real, the loss was real, and if you are in a relationship right now, romantic, professional, or both, where someone else has control of your finances, where your name isn't on the accounts, where your access could be removed at any time without your knowledge, please take this story as a warning sign. Not because it will end this way, but because financial vulnerability inside a relationship is a real danger, and it deserves to be treated that way before it becomes a crisis. The Salon and Spa Galleria on South Cooper Street is still there. Businesses are still operating inside that building. Stylists are still showing up for their clients. Life, as it always does, resumed. Dax the barber relocated to a different suite. He's still cutting hair, still telling people he's good, still working through what he saw in a way that no one who hasn't been through it can fully understand. The legal case around Credit Champs, the estate of Todd Austin, and the estate of Michelle Williams will be processed in the courts over time, in ways that rarely make headlines but matter enormously to the people who loved them and to the children left behind. The internet has already moved on to the next story. That's how these things go. But here at Dark Alley, we don't move on without sitting with the weight of it. We don't treat these stories as content and then forget the people in them. Todd Austin was a father. He was someone's client, someone's mentee, someone's friend. Whatever he did or didn't do, he did not deserve to die in a barber's chair. Dax didn't deserve to watch it happen. His clients didn't deserve to carry it home with them. And Michelle Williams was a veteran. She was a mother. She was a woman who built something from nothing more than once. Whatever she did at the end, she did not deserve to be financially dismantled by someone she trusted with her business, her home, and her child. Two people, one industry, one relationship that turned into something neither of them could survive. And one Christmas baby named Amiri, who is growing up in the middle of it all. If this story hit you differently than you expected it to, good. That means you were paying attention. This is why Dark Alley exists. Not to give you easy answers, not to hand you a villain and a hero and tell you which is which, but to sit with the full, complicated, painful truth of what human beings do to each other. And to each other through systems and institutions and financial mechanisms that most people don't even realize can be weaponized. If you learned something today, drop it in the comments. I read everything. I want to know which part of this story grabbed you, which part made you question what you thought you knew going in, and what questions you're still carrying now that we're at the end. And if you're not subscribed to Dark Alley yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button right now. I put everything into every single one of these stories, and I am not done. There is so much more coming down the alley. Take care of yourselves. Watch who you let into your accounts, your business, and your life. I'll see you in the next one.